guys, welcome back to Room 237, and I'm back with another 80s, not quite a slasher, I wouldn't really say it's a slasher, but another video nasty. Now, my last review was Don't Go in the Woods, which is an 80s slasher, it's a video nasty, and it kind of made me want to go back to 80s slashers. I mean, this whole shelf here is 80s slashers. I reviewed almost 100 so far. I also had the film a Mortuary, which I watched last night. It's another one that I had to review. But I picked this up today, and it was one that I've been curious about. It has some slasher elements, but I wouldn't quite call it a slasher. And it kind of goes with the point that I was making in Don't Go in the Woods. Oh, I almost said Don't Go in the Woods Alone, also known as. About how a lot of video nasties, some, yes, they are very bloody, very graphic. And then there are some where it's just like, they must have just went with the title, the trailer, the poster. This one, I guess, is considered an exploitation film. It's not bloody by any means, really. I'm guessing it was because of some of the heavily implied incestuous nature of the film. And like Mortuary, which I'll get to, this has a very early appearance by Bill Paxton, credited as William Paxton. This was one of his first movies. And it's 1981's Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker, which is an awesome title. This was put up by Code Red not that long ago. I think just a few months ago. And its alternate title was Night Warning, which is as generic as a title as you could possibly get. I think it was also known as On the Edge or On the Verge of a Nightmare. I'd say this one's the most catchiest. And from what I've seen, a lot of people have different theories on what this title means. I mean, there's one guy I watched, Carlin Cook. Go check out his channel. He's done a lot of Giallo reviews as well. You know, Butcher as in she kills, Baker as in, you know, she bakes and cooks, Nightmare Maker, you know, she causes nightmares. Also, X-Teen Featurette, go check out her channel. She thinks it has to do with like the Butcher, Baker, Candle Maker line in a nursery rhyme, and how she kind of tries to keep Billy, it's kind of a kid, or the main character, very childlike. I mean, you even see it when she redoes his robe later on in the film. Both kind of make sense. I think it's also just an easy sell because it's catchy and it rhymes. It sounds cool. But both are equally plausible as well. And so yeah, even though I'm not sure which list of the video nasties this made, as far as, you know, the first list, which was actually prosecuted, or if this is the one that was seized but not prosecuted, or the list of ones that were also of interest. But anyway, it's not an overly bloody slasher film. Again, I wouldn't even really call it a slasher. I'm not going to put it in my slasher playlist. But it was directed by William Asher, who's mostly known for sitcoms and beach party movies, which kind of makes sense because this does have kind of a sitcom-y feel. I mean, even the lead kid, Jimmy McNichol, just looks like a sitcom son. There is this one couple, an older couple that's friends with a villainous aunt, who is a very old school sitcom-y couple. In fact, the wife in that the wife of that couple, I can't remember the actress's name. She's been in a lot of things. She always pops in my head as Mallory's mom in Natural Born Killers. She reminds me of that actress. Which the aunt is played by Susan Tyrrell. And her performance, it's great. It really is. But uh, uh, I'll have to get through this first. Bear with me. And then also Bo Svensson as the lieutenant that's investigating the case. And again, brief appearance by Bill Paxton, which unfortunately is a very bit role. He's a guy I've grown to really appreciate. I grew up with him in random movies, but it wasn't until I started getting movies like this that I saw just how many he was actually in. And both of these, for his bit roles, he's a hell of a lot of fun. Also in films like Near Dark, he's great. Of course, most people know him from Aliens or Weird Science. But bit role in this, and sadly, where this release is so recent, it was released after his death, so he's not involved in any of the special features or commentaries, which is unfortunate. Because I would love to hear his thoughts on this. Because I think this was one of his first, not major roles, but where he's not like Boy 2 or Student 3, background. And his character is similar to Weird Science. He's, a bully to the main character on a basketball team. But he's great. Also, Britt Leach, who some people might recognize from other sitcoms, some other movies. I know him as the crusty old Mr. Sims from Silent Night, Deadly Night. He appears as the lieutenant in this. And Julia Duffy is his girlfriend, Julia. Now, pretty much, actually, before I get into that, it was written by Stephen Brymer and Alan J. Gluckman and Boone Collins. I guess this was going to be directed by someone else, but he was kind of too slow, so then they brought in Asher. Now, as I meant to say a number of times, this movie is essentially take Psycho kind of through the mother's point of view as an aunt, and make her the obsessive one. Not just domineering and possessive, but just like that psychotic. It does borderline on incestuous. It never goes too deep. It toes the line of incest, but never actually going there. And I'm pausing because I'm still kind of processing this. Her performance is okay. You take someone crazy, like, is she Kathy Bates as Annie Wilkes? No. Is she like a Norman Bates, or is she Anthony Perkins or Anthony Hopkins? No. But she's a lot of fun. I mean, in the beginning of the movie, she does just do a lot of kind of, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, evil looks. But as the film progresses, she gets more and more just mugs a lot, like very over the top. Just even if she has like a weapon, like a hatchet, she's just like just very over the top, borderline campy. But it does fit the tone of the film. It does have this era of 80s cheese to it. Like, when I first heard that this was more of like a psychological film during the slasher period, I was kind of thinking more of like Alice, Sweet Alice. But that's definitely more serious than this, despite its themes. But her performance is still a lot of fun, even though it borderlines on camp and can be very over the top at times, especially in the second half towards the end. She still does have moments of being able to be really creepy and uneasy and really selling the fact that she is severely unstable. In- Including just the stuff she does. I mean, everything she does to the characters in the film, her little secret spot of her shrine, which I'll get to, or when she actually has the moments where she snaps, where she's actually violently angry. It takes it out on Billy, like when she's trying to force him to drink the milk. The, that's all great. Then you have the over the top, almost campy stuff, which is still very fun. And basically, the film opens up with a 3-year-old who's being handed over to his Aunt Cheryl, so his parents can go do something. And they're driving down the road, their brakes fail, and they crash into a logging truck. And even though it's not really bloody, it's still pretty gruesome. I mean, you see the log come right through the windshield, pretty much take his head off, then rolls down a cliff and explodes, killing the mother. And it is kind of a haunting, creepy, uh, actually kind of depressing opening, because the young baby that's being held by the aunt is like reaching for and crying for his parents as they leave. But we know, as an audience, kind of knowing what we're getting ourselves into, no, he's never going to see him again. So we jump 14 years later. Billy is now 17. He's very skilled at basketball. He even has a chance to earn a full scholarship. He has a girlfriend named Julia. And Aunt Cheryl is not too pleased about him having a girlfriend, him not only graduating, but now going away to college. And she's now getting desperate to keep him there and to keep him all for herself. And this movie's pretty much her efforts of doing that. The first of which is having this TV repairman come over, who I was kind of confused at first, because it kind of seemed like he was like, "Well, you gonna pay me for your TV fix?" But thinking back, like, oh, she did kind of make some sort of advance that he refused. She attacked him, but then Billy comes home, witnesses. She stabs him several times. And I do like how a lot of the kills in this go into like this slow-mo, which I thought looked cool. So Billy takes the knife away from her. The elderly sitcom couple come in at the same time, see him with the knife. They call the Lieutenant Carlson, played by Bo Svensson, who he's equally as good a villain as Aunt Cheryl, but for much different reasons. She is like completely psychotic. He is just a complete bigot. Uh, he strongly believes that Billy is the one responsible for killing this guy, even though she screams rape. She, can't say the R word, I'll get demonetized. She says he tried to assault her, so she killed him in self-defense. Carlson does not buy that. He finds some evidence, like a ring that the guy had, that finds out that the basketball coach had the other ring, finds out they were in a gay relationship. And his theory is that Billy was involved in this gay love triangle. And his character is so homophobic and bigoted. He even threatens the coach to resign just out of spite. And even though the slur that begins with F appears very many times in this film was noted positively for having one of the earliest examples of a positively portrayed gay character, where he's not a stereotype, he's not a caricature, he is a good guy. He is someone that's trying to help and do well uh, by Billy. And he is a very likable character. So, I mean, it is a good balance of having this extremely homophobic character, but also not going completely that way with a strong like cartoon, a caricature, but to actually have a very positive character for that. And also how just nonchalantly they throw the slur around in this didn't age very well. But so if that kind of thing offends you, just know what's coming. And I mean, really, so while he's trying to really pin everything on Billy, and he's always showing up, and he's always an asshole, he really is just a character that you love to hate. Cheryl is doing everything she can to keep Billy grounded, not grounded like he's punished, but really stuck at home. So much so that it doesn't say what it is, but she drops something into his milk that makes him drugged up. So he messes up at the basketball game, potentially loses his scholarship, and eventually just keeps giving him that milk. So he's just drugged in bed essentially forever. Clears out the attic to make him a special room that's all decorated with his kid stuff, like his little kid stuff. There are some twists that I'll save for after spoilers, but I mean, it's a 1981 film. This was at one point available on Shudder. I'm not sure if it still is. But this is one that I can recommend. Sorry I'm stuttering so much. I mean, is it one of the best horror movies of the 80s or like psychological films? No, but it sure is a lot of fun. It's definitely entertaining. It's definitely a new angle of just that sort of implied. I'll get into the incest. It's mostly implied, but just that obsessively psychotic love for a family member, like Psycho, but just through someone else. And then eventually, Billy starts noticing his aunt is acting strange. He enlists the help of his girlfriend Julia. It thus brings us the third act. And yeah, she starts out like with this long hair, and then she like cuts her own hair. It gets even more messed up looking, and she starts doing like just crazy people faces, which no one picks up on. I'm surprised, but it is a fun movie. I do wish that Bill Paxton was in it more, because he is doing his 80s, fun, borderline obnoxious kind of Bill Paxton type character. That's always fun to watch. Yeah, not really sure what else to say about it. I mean, I guess I'll get into spoilers because again, there are some twists, but it is a very predictable movie. I mean, it's nothing game changing. So I'm gonna say spoilers here, but I'm not sure what other versions there are. But if you're gonna buy it, definitely pick up the Code Red Blu-ray. And yeah, I figure since I have this, I'll keep the original cover in the case. And again, Night Warning, extremely generic title. If it was a slasher, it would make sense, but even that, I mean, how many, Night Terror or Silent, anything with blood, night, silent, yeah, 2 words, very generic title. But But there's not really a bad performance in the whole film. I mean, there's none that are like so bad they're good, or any you really have to get used to. I mean, they're all. It's entertaining enough that if there is a rather poor performance, you don't really notice it. But I guess I'll get to spoilers here. Another thing that Aunt Cheryl does is it was a secret room in the attic, but she moves it to the basement. It starts out as just a shrine of photos of Billy's father, which Billy finds a photo of him and he's like, who's that guy? And she's like, oh, just a twerp that your mother was dating. But she keeps going back to the shrine and talking to it. You know, like, you know, I've made it so he can't go away. He's gonna stay here with us forever. You know, I made it so you can't leave. I'm gonna make it so he can't leave. Even when she cuts her hair, she's like, do you like it? Oh, I knew you would. You know, just talking to these pictures. And that's kind of a start of what Billy wants to investigate. Eventually, he finds his birth certificate because he knows she has this golden box of important stuff. So eventually, he gets his girlfriend Julia to try to talk to her, to stall her, so he can go up in her room to this box, which Cheryl's already not a fan of her because one, she exists, and two, she did walk in on them having sex, which them having sex is a plot point because Carlson goes to ask her if they have had sex because he thinks he's a homosexual. That's part of his case. So shortly after that, they do have sex. Cheryl walks in and gets pissed. And while they're talking, he finds his birth certificate that says, yeah, this guy Chuck is in fact his father, but Cheryl is his mother. So that's kind of the twist. And that, yes, this guy Chuck did leave Cheryl for her sister. And so, like, when she had Billy in the beginning and they left, it was, I guess, just her turn with custody, or just handed him over, as he's now dating the sister. And I mean, it's obvious from the beginning that she's the one that did the breaks. And even Britt Leach's character as the lieutenant, he never buys Billy as the killer. He does more digging, and he keeps finding all this stuff about Cheryl, but Carlson never wants to hear any of it. And essentially the third act, it does have one of those more story-driven slasher film third acts where all the kills are pretty much in the third act towards the end of the film. I mean, Julia almost gets killed like twice. Hit with a meat tenderizer in the back of the head while she's trying to distract her. She wakes up in the basement where she finds the shrine, also a completely decomposed headless corpse of the father, whose head is preserved in a jar. And I do like how we kind of get that gradually. Like, first it's the pictures, then it's the body, then we see the head. Also, the wife of the elderly couple, that's her friend, she keeps hanging around because she overhears some stuff she's saying to Billy while he's drugged up. And she knows Cheryl's not doing okay. She gets like a machete to the stomach at one point, which is probably one of the bloodier or the bloodiest kill, save for the very ending. And I mean, by this point, Cheryl's running around either with a machete or with a hatchet, and she's just always like, oh, just over the top, kind of mugging. And I thought this was gonna have a bummer ending, kind of like Happy Birthday to Me, where okay, so once also Brett Leach's character shows up, finds Julia in the cellar that he's killed by Cheryl. So you have Brett Leach's lieutenant character is killed, the wife of the other couple is killed, Julia almost several times. And then during the final confrontation, Billy stumbles downstairs, tries to call 911. Cheryl comes up, tries to, strangle him with the phone cord. And, they have a fight. She tries slashing him with a knife, and he's able to stab her in slow motion. He tries to call for help again. Of course, she comes back. She runs into a fire poker. And then this is when the cops show up, and Carlson sees everything. Well, he is able to call the coach. He calls the coach for help. He comes over to help, which of course sort of almost fits the narrative for Carlson. But eventually, and even when this other officer brings Julia in, it was like, no, she's the killer. Go look in the basement. You'll find proof. Carlson just shuts it down. Eventually, the gun gets knocked out of Carlson's hand. Billy grabs it, shoots Carlson, which is pretty satisfying. And then I thought it was going to end there. But then Julia comes in with the other cop. The cop sees him, sees Carlson, is like, well, the guy he doesn't say anything. He's like, well, okay, yeah, he was an asshole. Which I don't think is very believable. But it ends with him and Julia hugging. And I would have been fine with that, but it was kind of nice to have a bit of a disclaimer saying he was tried, found temporarily insane, then acquitted, and then they both went to the University of Denver together. Now, as far as the incestuous aspect, I mean, yes, in the very beginning, when we first see him as 17, and things are normal for them, he is sleeping shirtless, and she kind of like grazes his sides up his back as she's like purring in his ear and meowing to try to wake him up. She is always hugging him very close, and like when the cops are talking to him, she is like holding his arm. And when she finally does die in his arms, she does kind of get like a big wet kiss. But it's never... When I first heard the plot, I thought it was going to be, she just has the hots for her nephew. But as the plot went on, I think she does kind of see him as an extension of Chuck. That's what I get from it. On top of her just being completely unstable and insane. I think if they had gone further with the incest and gone for like a full-on just like sort of like what Last House on the Left did for Assault back in 1972, bring it to like that level of just shocking, I don't think it would have fit the tone. It does have a very... It is a much lighter, more comedic kind of tone. I wouldn't call it a horror comedy, but again, I also wouldn't call it a slasher. It's not a slasher, but it does have slasher elements. So I think they did just have the right amount of implying the incest. It is just more like, yes, while she may be in love with her nephew, I think it is she sees him more as an extension of his father. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's a fun movie. It's entertaining. It's a different story than something you would have seen in 1981. While it does have some of the slasher formula, and you did have some slashers that were more story driven and a lot more deeper or more psychological. It's still a pretty deep, a, a different story, which I was very much sucked into. I did constantly want to see what happens next, and yeah, uh, I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was entertaining, had the right amount of fun in the performances, which it all does hinge on Susan Tyrrell's performance. I agree with Carlin Cook's review on this, where she really does have to sell her unstableness, her insanity to make this movie work. And it is the right amount of creepy and unsettling and just this sort of single white female, how she always has a plan to sabotage everything, which I would say, and I'm not sure how deep this goes, but that the murder in the very beginning was a ploy to sort of cause some trouble, get Billy entangled with it so he would have to stay and not be able to go to college. Or at least further sabotage his chances of getting into college. Now, whether she knew, which she did say to him, well, why don't you call the repair guy since you know him? I don't think she knew the extent of him being in a relationship with his coach, who Billy was close with. I don't know if it goes that deep, but I think it was at least just a murder plot to entangle Billy as sort of the first domino to fall. And yeah, just a very fun. It's as fun as it is interesting. And again, I it's not going to be in my slasher playlist. I have seen slashers with less kills, but again, I think this is more of like a psychological exploitation film rather than a slasher, but still plenty of fun. So yes, I also have another Bill Paxton film, a Mortuary, to get to. I also have what else did I pick up today? I bought my second copy of In Fabric, which still doesn't work for some reason. My PlayStation just does not like that Blu-ray disc. But also 1979's Delirium, which either Delirium or Mortuary will be next. So stay tuned for those, and I will be getting more 80s slashers and video nasties as time goes on. So again, stay tuned for those, and thank you for watching.